Hello, I'm Patrick, and I'm here to discuss my assignment number 1 in digital imaging, paint a transparent object. One of the things I found interesting about this assignment was actually trying to find the right photograph that I wanted to paint. I went to different places, Walmart, Petco. I had an idea in mind, and I started looking around some of the fish sections because fish are colorful, they're interesting, and they have a lot of transparency in the images if you get it right. And I came across a really interesting betta fish in the back of Walmart, and I pulled the betta fish down, got the lighting right, and I waited there for the fish to do something kind of interesting so I could capture the right turning, the scale, something interesting that the fish was doing. And in this scene, we can see that the fish is kind of turning down at an angle, but what was really cool about this particular shot that I took was the reflection in the bottom of the bowl. So you've got a fish, you've got transparency objects with the water and the reflections on the bowl itself, and also the reflection of the fish, which I found very interesting. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of how I prepared that. I brought it into Photoshop, and I used several different adjustment layers to fix it. Anything ranging from levels, brightness, saturation, those kinds of all different photo techniques to bring the levels up to where I wanted to bring the color out of the fish, to make sure the lighting was right and do any corrections for that. A little crop as well was useful. At this point I pulled out the Wacom tablet that I have and made sure that I had the brushes set right. The brushes were set on the mixer setting and sample all layers. And so I broke it down into different layers within Photoshop so I could focus on different aspects of this while preserving the original background layer. One of the layers that I used was for the fish itself. Another layer was for the bowl, on the edges of the bowl and the contours of that. Another was for the water, and the reflection was a different one as well. And I found later on, and I'll discuss this a little bit more, was I had to use two different layers within Photoshop for the background. One of the layers I used in Photoshop for the background was for the edges around the bowl. I wanted to use a gradient on that, and it took me a little bit to play with the gradient to make sure the shadows were right and they matched what was going on with the bowl and the transparent effects of the water. But I found by doing that, that the water itself, there was a couple spots in the water that weren't brushed fully, but if I brushed those areas of the water, it would look kind of odd. So I did a mask on that one with the gradient for the background, but I created a second adjustment layer in Photoshop just for the water background. It masked off the edges. And I put one in there that was a little bit lighter, more transparency to fill those areas I missed just a little bit with the brush, to make it, to actually give it that transparent effect. So that was kind of one of the little tricks I found to make this one work correctly. Here is a final image of the painting with the photo original background layer removed. So all that's left is the layers that I did with the Wacom tablet. And I really like the way it turned out. You can see the reflections, you can see a little bit of the transparency in the water, more than I thought I was going to be able to get. And I really like the fish looking reflectively and the reflection looking back at him. One thing I did not mention earlier when I was discussing this was that there was actually some numbers on the bottom in the plastic piece itself that I was able to remove as well to make the image a little bit better. A lot of attention to detail and brush strokes, trying to get things right. I actually used the eraser quite a bit to go back, and I found out you can use the eraser with the brush tool with the pressure settings as well, so that was also pretty useful. Going back and forth, turning the photo on, turning the photo off, that was all very helpful. To prepare this for our posting in class, after I was done, I flattened the image, went through and saved as legacy for web, and got the right settings down for the size that was specified, and uploaded it. So just a little bit of reflection on this piece. I enjoyed this assignment. I found it difficult. Doing the transparency, the reflections, the shapes on the fish, the bowl itself, and some of the shadowing. I found it was very challenging and a fun assignment to actually show kind of what we learned during the previous exercises. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. This is Patrick. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next assignment.